Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. We're on text 50. It's October 5th. It's October 22nd, 2023. Text 50 of Chapter 5, Canto 3. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nicham bhagavata seveya bhagavat yutamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Tvam na suranam asi saanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau reta tu ajayam kavim adadhe aja tvam nasaranam asi sanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau Retas tvajayam kavimada deja tvam nasuranam asi sanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau retas tvajayam kavimada deja tvam nasuranam asi sanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau retas tvajayam kavimada deja tvam nasuranam asi sanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau
Adadeja.
Vetastvajayam kavima dadejam. Tvam na saranamasi sanvayanam. Kutasta adya purusha paranam. Tvam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonau. Vetastvajayam gavima dadejam. For those who joined recently, we're on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 50. Would anyone online like to lead the recitation of the verse? Okay, we'll go to the word meanings. Tvam,
Rama,
your lordship.
your lordship.
Na,
Of
us.
Suranam,
Of the demigods. Asi, you are. Sa anvayanam. With different gradations. Kutasta, one who is unchanged. Adya, without any superior. Purusha, the founder person. Purana, the oldest who has no other founder. Tvam, you. Deva, O Lord. Shaktyam, unto the energy. Gunakarma yonau, unto the cause of the material modes and activities. Reta, semen of birth. To, indeed. Ajayam, for begetting. Kavim, the total living entities. Adhate, initiated. Aja, one who is unborn. Translation. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations, yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 50. The Lord, the original person, is the father of all other living entities beginning from Brahma, the personality from whom all other living entities in different gradations of species are generated. Yet the Supreme Father has no other father. Every one of the living entities of all grades, up to Brahma, the original creature of the universe, is begotten by a father, but he, the Lord, has no father. When he descends on the material plane, out of his causeless mercy, he accepts one of his great devotees as his father to keep pace with the rules of the material world. But since he is the Lord, he is always independent in choosing who will become his father. For example, the Lord came out of a pillar in his incarnation as Nrsingadev. And by the Lord's causeless mercy, Ahalya came out of a stone by the touch of the lotus feet of his incarnation as Lord Sri Ram. He is also the companion of every living entity as the Supersoul. But he is unchanged. The living entity changes his body in the material world, but even when the Lord is in the material world, he is ever unchanged. That is his prerogative. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.3, the Lord impregnates the external or material energy, and thus the total living entities later come out in different gradations, beginning from Brahma, the first demigod, down to the insignificant ant. All gradations of living entities are manifested by Brahma and the external energy, but the Lord is the original father of everyone. The relationship of every living being with the Supreme Lord is certainly one of son and father, and not one of equality. Sometimes in love, the son is more than the father, but the relationship of father and son is one of the superior and the subordinate. Every living entity, however great he may be, even up to demigods like Brahma and Indra, is an eternally subordinate servitor of the Supreme Father. The Mahatattva principle is the generating source of all the modes of material nature, and the living entities take birth in the material world in bodies supplied by the mother, material nature, in terms of their previous work. The body is a gift of material nature, but the soul is originally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Om Angyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Bande Ham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 5 Text 50 Tvam nasaranamasi sanvayanam kutasta adya purusha purana Tvam deva shakyam guna karma yonel retastvajayam kavimada deja. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations, yet you are the oldest and are unchanged, O Lord. You have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, Prabhupada starts the purport with, the Lord, the original person, is the father of all other living entities, beginning from Brahma, the personality from whom all other living entities in different gradations of species are generated. Yet the Supreme Father has no other father. And so Prabhupada's talking about the Father. Throughout the purport, later in the purport, Prabhupada writes, the relationship of every living being with the Supreme Lord is certainly one of son and father and not one of equality. Sometimes in love, the son is more than the father, but the relationship of father and son is one of the superior and the subordinate. Okay. So this is the essential relationship. Prabhupada often quotes the verse from 14th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Aham bija parapita. Krishna says, I'm the father of all living entities. Prabhupada quotes that a lot to emphasize that it's not like Krishna is the father of one particular section, or even one particular species, humans, or like the God of the Jews, the God of the Hindus, the God of the Muslims. No, Krishna is the father, the source. Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He's the original person, Prabhupada, the Lord, the original of all living entities. And so to the extent that we get that, then naturally there cannot, if we actually realize that, then not just in a sentimental way, then truly we're realizing everyone as brother and sister. Okay. And not just, it could become like a kumbaya sort of thing, brothers, like that. But to get Krishna as the source of all living entities, then okay, we're all children, all children of Krishna. So actually, we're all the same family. Okay, and then all right. So that's like the essential foundational relationship. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasabha Bricha. Krishna's the master, and we're all servants. Krishna is the master, and we're all servants. Even his different avatars, they're servants too. Then Prabhupada talks about that Vatsalya relationship a bit, but okay, then kind of like getting that we're servants of Krishna, and we get to, in this body, we get to practice devotional service. Prabhupada says this body's a gift. The body is a gift of material nature, but the soul is originally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So it's a gift, and then we can effectively, properly use the gift, or we can misuse the gift for further forgetfulness of who we are as spirit souls and as servants of the Supreme Father. And so a gift, and so we can use the gift in a magnanimous, auspicious way. Let me use this. In one sense, this senses the body, the mind. This is all about forgetfulness, right? The proof that we're not sincere about serving God with love and devotion is this stuff. This is, I got a material body to use in material ways to further immerse myself in the illusion that I'm the controller. At the same time, we, particularly in the human form, what the body's really designed, we can misuse it, but what's really designed for is to engage this tongue and these legs and this mind and all aspects of the material body, gross and subtle, to engage it in bhakti, to engage in devotional service. Then that's the respectful, proper use of Mother Nature's gift. So, okay, so God is the Father. It's a kind of a common conception, and then Jesus, New Testament. Oh, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And in the Hebrew, God's name's Father. Adonai, our Master, our Father, like that. Okay. So, all right. So God is the Father, and then, okay, then by getting that, I'm a servant of Krishna. And we practice the sadhana to come out of the idea of Ishvaroham, Maham Bhogi, Siddhoham, Balavan Sukhi, to come out of I'm the controller, I'm perfect, powerful, happy, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, to come out of those conceptions and okay, Krishna is the controller, Krishna is the supreme facilitator, and let me serve him. In that spirit of I'm servant, he's master. Then, at higher stages, after the Anarta Nivritti stage, Valerie and I talked about the 9 stages of devotional service as given by Rupa Goswami, starting with Adao Shraddha, Sadhu, Sangato, Bhajan, Kriya, faith, and then association, and then commitment, like the initiation process, clearing the heart, and steadiness, and taste, and then higher stages of love of God. Then in higher state, because right now, in this stage, our forgetfulness of God, our forgetfulness of Krishna, this comes from our gross ignorance and material desires, like that. Okay, then at higher stages, then one can forget that Krishna is the supreme controller, but that's coming from love, and it leads to love. So, like, yes, yeah, because in one sense, okay, God's the Father, so. Oh, Father, oh God, give us our daily bread. The idea is the father, the mother, the parents, they're always serving the child. That's the idea. So then it's like a higher stage, like Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. So they're forgetting that Krishna is the personality of Godhead, just like we're forgetting that Krishna is the personality of Godhead. but it's not the same. It's qualitatively different. Their forgetfulness deepens their love. And so they get to be the parents of Krishna, with Krishna as their son, like that. Okay, so that gets into higher stage. We don't want to imitate that. At the same time, we can aspire towards it through rigorously practicing the sadhana bhakti process that Prabhupada gives us. So this idea of God the Father, okay, God the Father. So then that's often seen, especially in the modern times and over recent centuries, God the Father. This is anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. That's a fancy word, and if you use the word anthropomorphism, then it's like, see, I've gone to college or something. I'm like an intellectual. Oh, that's anthropomorphic, just because you need a father figure, right? We have this need for a father figure, and so we create some idea of the supreme entity, God the Father, very primitive, very unsophisticated. And so we'll hear that a lot, okay, in different intellectual academic circles. It's just anthropomorphism. At the same time, if we look logically, because the premise there is that, okay, because we need something, therefore it doesn't really exist. It's just a figment of our imagination coming from need. But let's look at that premise. On the physiological platform, we need air. And we can notice that air happens to exist. We need water, and we can notice that water happens to exist. So just because we need something doesn't mean it's a figment of our imagination. It could really exist. Okay. So, and then this conception, or okay, sometimes I use the term reverse anthropomorphism. The idea being that that I have a conception of what a person is. I have an experience of myself as a person, and my friends and people I grew up with, and we all have our experience of hundreds and thousands of persons. And all the persons we know, we say, we got defects. We're far from perfect, and we got incompleteness, and we're subject to mistakes and cheating and illusion, and we're limited. All right. So therefore, when you talk about God as the person, father or mother, or God as a person in some way, okay, well then God must be a person like me or like my friend over there. I mean, maybe a little stronger or smarter or something. But okay. But then God, as far as this is like perfect, all powerful, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent being, well, couldn't be a person. Couldn't be a person, because persons are limited and they make mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, based on my conception of personhood, I reject the possibility of God's personhood. So it's reverse anthropomorphism. Like I'm rejecting God as a person, and based on my limited conception of personhood. Okay, so it's like whatever. Let's say if I have had no previous experience of an apple, and then you give me an apple, and it's one of these like it tastes like styrofoam, and it's half rotten and it's soft, and it's not crisp. It's just okay. So I have an experience of okay, so that's what apple is. So then later in life come someone, oh, here's an apple. No, maybe it's an actual ripe apple that's crispy and organic and like that. But oh, apple, no, I don't want, no. I know what apple is. Okay. So, all right, now it's true. So we're looking a quote many of you have heard me quote from the poet William Blake. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. Very clever poem showing lots of realization of Bhagavatam. God appears and God is light. So we might naturally think, oh, he's going to celebrate that. Oh yeah, God is light. Everyone, oh, God is light. Yeah. To those poor souls who dwell at night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. Okay. But that human form, just like early in the Bible, it says B'Tselem Elohim, right? So that man is created, humans are created in the image of God. It's not that the human form of God is a figment of my anthropomorphic imagination. No. But we have this form, and this is a reflection of the original form of God, Sri Krishna. So now, in the name of God the Father, so a reason why that's been more or less rejected in recent centuries by like intellectual, academic, sophisticated type thinkers is because it's true in the name of, just like if we look in the material world, in the South, there was this feud. Maybe it's still going on between the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? Kind of like different family feuds. And we got different fathers, like my family against yours. So you can have like, the God of the Hindus and the God of the Jews and the God of the Muslims. And so in the name of God and the Father, there's like all this sectarian stuff and wars and conflict. Not consistent with the verse that Prabhupada's referencing here, Aham Bija Pradapita. No, Krishna is the father of all living entities, all races, all genders, all species, like that. So that's why it's become more and more popular in all traditions that rather than think of like God as a person, a father, okay, actually, God, the absolute God, the source, it's energy. And Prabhupada addresses that here. The relationship of every living being with the Supreme Lord is certainly one of son and father and not one of equality. So importantly here, because the idea, once we take away the supreme personhood of the absolute truth, it's like it's energy, then we are artificially making everything equal. Okay, because that can sound nice. Yeah, it's a force, it's the energy, may the force be with you, like that. Okay. And that can sound like intellectual and more sophisticated than God the Father, and worship, that sort of thing. But then you could get into, of course, I believe in the Supreme Spirit, the great force. What's that practically mean? Means I get to be spiritual and sophisticated and intellectual, and I don't need to serve anyone. What and special? Yeah, special. Yeah, because then, it's special because then I am God. I am God. You are God. So then we don't need to serve anyone. So it's true. Yes, right. Yeah, and then I can still be spiritual and just do whatever I want to do, and it's all energy and love the energy and this and that, and I can do whatever I want to do and call it spiritual. Okay. Okay, so it's true. We do want to see through and eliminate sectarian material conceptions of God the Father. And Bhagavatam does that. And the idea of it's all energy, I'm kind of being mocking and skeptical and cynical and making fun of it. And at the same time, that's true. That's true. And that's something I love about this Bhagavatam philosophy, that anything that's true in any approach, it's there in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. It's included and transcended. So the oneness of the absolute, that's truth. Just we're looking at how misused. It's rationalized in a way to avoid surrendering to anyone and just, oh yeah, I want to be called spiritual. So it's all one. Isn't that cool? Yeah, great. Okay. But it is all one. So Bhagavatam describes Vedanti tat tatvavidas tattvamyaj Genam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So including and transcending. That's Bhagavatam. And that's a major reason why my intellect has been so satisfied by Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, all Prabhupada's teaching. So that verse is a key verse in Bhagavatam, second chapter, first canto, text 11, that describes there are three aspects of the absolute. There are three aspects of the absolute. And you might say the preliminary aspect is the oneness, the Brahma Gyoti. So that's true. That's true. And to actually realize the oneness of all energies, it's not a cheap, whimsical, frivolous thing like this. Isn't that cool? Everything's one. Okay, but what's my realization of everything one? A basic experiment. Okay, so yeah, I am you and you are me and we're all one. Wow, whoa, yes, yeah. Okay, all right. So yeah, so if we're all one, I am you and you are me. So it's going to be fine for you. If the wallet that's in your pocket were in my pocket, that's fine for you. You accept that because we're all one. I've tried that. No one's ever given me their wallet because no one actually that hasn't worked yet. I've tried because no one actually believes we're all one. It's just like a cool thing to say. No one actually believes it. No, you're a separate identity. I'm a separate identity. And these credit cards are my possession for my use. No, I'm not going to give you my wallet. So no one actually believes that. Okay. It's just something to say. So, okay. So that's it. So everything is the energy of Krishna. There is oneness. There is that undifferentiated oneness, realization of the absolute. And to come to that realization of like God in everything, everything is God's energy, everything is Krishna's energy. We like to come to that realization of no distinctions requires making a lot of distinctions, right? Because right now I'm in the bodily concept of life, and I am this body, and I'm David Wolf. I'm 62 years old, and I got all these bodily conceptions, and so to practice austerity, practice spiritual life. Okay, then we can come to realization of how everything is the energy of the absolute. But right now, I'm making all sorts of material differentiation. So an actual non-personal path, like as given by Shankaracharya, it's more austere than the path of bhakti. The actual path of what Buddha taught or Shankaracharya, they taught non-personal philosophies, and it's more austere than bhakti. It needs to be more austere because there's not much of a higher taste that comes from service. So there is the oneness. Then the next stage of realization of the absolute is Paramatma, God in the heart. Andantarasta, Paramano Chantarasta, not just in the heart of all living entities, but there's a full, complete expansion of Krishna called Paramatma inside every atom. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Videsha Junatishtati. Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrayuda Rudani Maya. Krishna is in the heart of all living entities, and we're on this machine made of material energy. Okay, and just as Prabhupada emphasizing here, just as Krishna is described here, or the Lord is described here as Kutasta. And that's from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's here in Bhagavatam. So it means like steady, right? So this body changes. The living entity is also Kutasta. It's described in Bhagavad Gita. Najayate miyate vakata chin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajonichim shashvato yam parano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is neither birth nor death. nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is not slain when the body is slain. The soul is eternal, everlasting, undying, primeval, unborn. Like, okay. So the soul's also not changing from childhood to youth to old age, but we identify with the body, and so we think we're changing. So that's Bhoktaram Yagatapasam Sarvalokameshwaram. So Krishna is the supreme father of all planetary system. He's the source of all energies. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, and he's in our heart, being our best friend. He's being our best friend, always giving us good guidance. To the extent that we realize this and help others to realize it, Gyatva Mam Shanti Richati. Then we reach Richati, we reach peace. This Prabhupada calls that verse of Bhagavad Gita the peace formula. The last verse in chapter 5.29. So that's the peace formula. Okay. And then we reach peace, realizing that Krishna is the best friend of all living entities, and Krishna is the goal of all service. So the nature of the self is to serve. Right? We often, following Prabhupada's lead, define dharma as that which cannot be separated from a thing. Right? So the dharma of fire is to be hot, the dharma of chili is to be pungent, the dharma of sugar is to be sweet, the dharma of the spirit soul is to serve. Bob Dylan had a song in his Christian phase, you got to serve somebody. He basically, you're going to serve Maya, you're going to serve God. Okay, in different, that reduces it, but it's essentially true. So we're going to serve. So that's why even one who realizes it's all one, generally that's just like a sloppy thing to say to try to sound spiritual. But there's truth to it, and someone who's actually realizing that truth, okay, then there is the happiness that comes from relief from material desires, realizing the oneness of everything, and then I'm not going to greedily try to acquire this or that. Still, that realization, it's not going to be completely satisfying. There's not the positive happiness of the soul. The positive happiness of the soul comes from bhakti, comes from devotional service. So that's the most complete realization of the absolute. So there's oneness, there's God in the heart, and then there's Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. And John Madhyase, that's where Bhagavatam starts. John Madhyase Yashon Baya Yitartash Tradesh Vabigeshu Svarat Teni Brabhavidayadikavye Miyatiyat Suraya Tejavayamidam, like that. So it means that what exists in the effect must exist in the source. So we are persons. We've got personality. And there's color, and there's variety, and there's activity. So that must exist in the source. How can we deny? I mean, God is complete like that, but he can't have a personality. He has a personality. It's not a material, mundane personality. It's not one of those styrofoam apples. It's a different sort of apple altogether that we have no experience of in material, in the material sphere. God must have a personality. Otherwise, how do we have personhood? Otherwise, how do we have personhood? So again, Bhagavatam includes the conceptions of God the Father without the primitive material sectarianism that has become prominent there. And Bhagavatam includes, the oneness of all energies, which has become, in the new age, in postmodern, that's become, that's a more sophisticated approach to spiritual realization. And it's often used in such a cheap, frivolous way. At the same time, it's true. So Bhagavatam includes the truth of all these conceptions and transcends them in beautiful, blissful ways. And so for me, this is like, this relates to the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is called Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, which means simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. There's a verse in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita, Maya tattvam idam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nacham teshvabastita. So Krishna says, I am everything, yet I am apart from everything. Okay, so everything's Krishna and everything's apart from Krishna. If we get, because everything's the energy of Krishna, and at the same time Krishna has his original personality in Goloka Vrindavan, and so he's also separate from everything. So so to realize the simultaneous oneness and distinction of everything from the absolute, from God, oneness and distinction. A common example often used by Prabhupada, the sun and the sun rays. Okay. So as we say, like if it's 7:15 a.m., here we are, we could say the sun is coming into Malini's ashram. And that's true, because the sun rays are the sun. The sun rays are the sun. It's true. At the same time, if we say the sun is coming into Malini's ashram, we're not saying that the sun globe is in this living room here, in this temple room. No. Okay. So the sun rays are not different from the sun. At the same time, they're different. The sun rays, they're not exactly the same as the sun, and they're not completely different. There's sameness. The sun rays also have heat, and they emanate light and heat, just like the sun globe. But they're not completely the same. The sun globe is 1.4 million times the volume of Earth, and the sun rays are just a little submicroscopic photon. Okay, so similarly, we are rays of Krishna, and we're just like Krishna. We're also Kutastha. We're also Sat Chidananda, eternally full of bliss and knowledge, with eternal personality, spiritual personality, and that's the bliss of bhakti, emerging our eternal spiritual personality and engaging it more and more enthusiastically in devotional service to Krishna. And that's not there in the impersonal path. In the impersonal paths, you can get some relief from material misery, which is nice, but you're not going to get that positive bliss that comes from personally serving Krishna eternally. Krishna says right at the beginning of, I'll call it the philosophical part of Bhagavad Gita, he says to Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall we ever cease to be. We're eternally persons, spiritual persons. This is the covering of the diamond, the material stuff, the material mind, the material ego. That's a covering of the spiritual personality. That's a covering of the spiritual personality. Just like the example could be given, Prabhupada. We borrow pretty much all the examples from Prabhupada. So just like, that the body, the clothes have a particular shape. The pants have legs and the shirt has, the clothes have a particular shape because the body has a particular shape, okay? And so similarly, we got this material body, this isn't us, but it's got eyes, it's got a nose, and it's got arms and legs, because the spirit soul is possessed of spiritual arms, spiritual legs, spiritual senses, spiritual capacity to speak and hear and taste. And this is a covering. And we can get more refined with the analogy there. Like, okay. All right, so let's say the hand, all right. So maybe there's a very fine mitten or something, a very fine glove. Okay. And so, right, so then I don't have the full functioning of the hand. Maybe if I tried to pick up a dime, I couldn't quite do it, but I could still do a lot. But then let's say over that fine glove, I put on a winter glove or something. Okay, like something like that. Okay, then you still get the shape because the hand has a shape. The shape is there, but now I'm even more limited. Like if I wanted to, like flip the page of a book, and so on top of that, I put a hockey glove to play hockey. Then just can't do hardly anything, but you can still get that. Yeah, the glove has a shape because the hand has a shape. So similarly, to the extent that we're covered by the lower modes, it's just like we can hardly our original blissful spiritual self, free spiritual self, can hardly function. And as we come to sattva, then it becomes finer and finer pieces of textile, pieces of cloth, and then the path of bhakti, our full spiritual personality, our spiritual mind, our spiritual arms, our spiritual tongue, our spiritual ears are fully manifest. And to the extent that we rigorously practice the process of bhakti as given by our living direct current link to the Parampara Srila Prabhupada, then we get to experience that even in this body. We don't need to wait till the body dies. We get to experience the emergence of spiritual eyes and like that. Not that I have much experience, but I can say, like to some extent, compared to 45 years ago, before I, was chanting Hare Krishna and reading Prabhupada's books, to some extent, like, okay, I'm, when I'm seeing the spirit soul. Not that I have much realization, but people prior to coming to this process, I'm just seeing bodies. I'm just seeing bodies. Now, to some extent, okay, I'm saying this is a spirit soul inside a body. I'm not seeing with the material eyes. As a material example, right? Because like as we practice this process, we see with the eyes of knowledge. So I have a drop of experience. Yeah, that's actually true. Materially, even, right? Like if a small child sees the sun, the child, it's a yellow circle 3 inches. But when we see the sun, we don't see a yellow circle 3 inches in the sky. We see it's this immense stellar body, right? Huge, 1.4 million times the volume of the Earth. No, with material eyes, we don't see that, but we're seeing with the eyes with scientific knowledge. So similarly, as we read Bhagavad Gita, we practice bhakti, we more and more, we see with spiritual eyes, we see with the eyes of spiritual knowledge and with gradually increasing realization. Okay, so Bhagavatam includes the conceptions of the absolute and transcends. Very, very beautiful process. And we can look, I see this as like a reference point for the different philosophies. Like any philosophy, I'll make a statement, like any philosophy that has some adherents and followers and people who are interested, it must have some grain of truth, even if we think of even the most treacherous philosophies or those that have done the most damage. There must be some grain of truth. Otherwise, it wouldn't be attractive. People are attracted to truth. And it's covered in different ways. So like some philosophies overemphasize the oneness. We're all one. We're all one. And there's truth to that. Overemphasize the oneness without appreciating the distinction. We're all one, and we're also distinct. Okay, and also God. We're all God. We're all part of God. There's a purport in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada says, "Your grandmother's God." He doesn't say that, and you're a God. Like so, there's a sense in which that's true. But then also, Krishna has a separate existence as a separate person. And then some philosophies overemphasize like the difference, like God is so far away, you shouldn't even say his name. God is so far away, or there is no God. So here in the Chintya Beta Beta Tattva, inconceivable and simultaneously one and different, then we get more and more realization by practicing the process of sadhana bhakti of how everything is simultaneously one and different. And that realization, it's not just simultaneous one and difference, it's inconceivable and simultaneous one and difference. Inconceivable doesn't mean you can't understand. You just need to blindly accept. No, it means with material, empirical mind and intellect and senses, we're going to be very limited. But through the process of bhakti, because God is a person, absolute, is sentient, thou hast proved in personal calamity, thou hast moved. Through the process of bhakti, Krishna, through his pure devotee, gives us that divya jnana. So it's a way of knowing that comes through humble service. And at the beginning of the class, I'll close with where at the beginning I quoted Jesus, oh, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So, okay, right. So to chant the names in any bona fide spiritual approach, tradition, there's this emphasis, chant the names of the Supreme Father. Or if we're not, if that doesn't feel sophisticated enough, chant the name, chant Om, chant the name of an impersonal representation, but chant the names of the absolute. And that's recommended in every bona fide tradition. And often Srila Prabhupada would say, it's like, okay, would he be talking to Christian groups, to priests? He says, he's not saying, he wouldn't say, you have to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but you have a name of God. Chant that. You know, it would be in Iran with Muslim groups. You have a name of God, chant that. So again, it's oneness and difference. All nam namakri bauda nija sarvashaktista trapitanyambate smarane naklai tadrishi tavakripa bhagavan mamapi dordeva midrashami hajanina and muraga. Right, so there's unlimited names of God. Doesn't mean we can make one up, but they're unlimited names of God chanting, and they're all invested with God's potencies. There are no rules and regulations for the effectiveness of chanting the names of the absolute. So that's all one. So they're all one, and there's distinctions. Some names of God are more intimate and give us entrance into the deeper recesses of the bhakti of the heart. And that's why I should chant any name of God, true, true, true. And Idi Shodashakam Nam Nam Kalikamashanashanam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the ancient Vedas, all the time, and especially for this current age, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is especially recommended to cleanse the heart and awaken our natural love for God. So I'll read the text again. This is Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 50. Tvam nasuranamasi sanvayanam kutasta aja purusha purana tam deva shaktyam gunakarma yonal vetastvajayam kavimada deja. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations. Yet you are the oldest and are unchanged, O Lord. You have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. Thank you. Thank you for your presence and attention. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments, realizations, sharing, or questions. Malini.
I appreciated your sharing about the oneness.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I'm sure the people who are going to the oneness make some advancements somewhere.
Something, yeah.
But it's also a joke.
It's
Like,
usually
like you brought to the, like on one hand, the oneness allow people to just, indulge in sense gratification, really. And
still be called spiritual.
And feel very strongly like they are superior to everybody else because they are so spiritual. But that's kind of ridiculous because in the Bhagavad Gita, like you said, Krishna said, this process is more difficult than bhakti.
Yeah.
It's more difficult.
It's more difficult.
So there's a joke there. There's if you really want oneness, then it's such an arduous process. And pain will be in your face.
Yeah.
And there will be no sense gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's not oneness, it's something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Because if there is sense gratification, that means my individuality counts and matter. And in fact, that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
And that's contrary to the so-called oneness philosophy.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate that you put those two together.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Thank you, Malini. Yeah. right? Yeah, the oneness path. Krishna says, Klesho degat teras tasham, avyakta sakta chetsasam, avyakta here gatir dukam, tehad vapir avapyati. Krishna says those paths are more difficult because there's no prasad. Yeah, you might as well just, yeah, there's no samosas, there's no halava. No
dancing.
No dancing.
There's nothing for your senses.
It's all Maya.
There's nothing.
It's
and there's sense gratification, then that's not that class.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and there are serious practitioners, not too many, but certainly historically, and just like I admire them in a sense because they're so austere and they don't get the higher taste of dancing in kirtan because that's Maya. Dancing is Maya. Delicious samosas, that's Maya. Okay, but so that's a bhakti is such a it's different thing. It's like because the idea is there's material life and people get, oh, I can see this is just futile, this is illusion. So then there's past where you can give up material life. But then if there's not renunciation, it becomes a joke, it becomes a farce. Jnana and Vairagya, they go together. They actually get knowledge of spirit and oneness. It actually goes together. And so without the Vairagya, it just becomes a farce. It becomes a farce.
Something that I feel good about.
Yeah.
Make me feel superior to what it is.
And then with the Vairagya, then I admire those people who are actually, and we know a few, and it's like at least in the books, it's like because they are giving up a lot of sense gratification, and they're not getting the bliss of engaging the senses in a spiritual way in bhakti. It's just rejecting the senses, and without the higher taste to be so austere, I probably couldn't do it. Gajendra Prabhu.
Good morning, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So you may have said this because you were talking about it, but I didn't quite hear it. So I'll say it, and if I'm repeating it, I guess it's worth repeating. So you had brought up about the anthropomorphic thinking, how people are applying that.
Yeah.
And I appreciated. So, we look at God as having personality, as having form and features, and well, yes, everything that goes with being a person.
Yeah.
And then there's the impersonal conception. And so there's kind of like people might try to make that criticism of those who, believe or have faith of God, like, oh, you're being anthropomorphic.
Right. Yeah.
But really, and you might have said this, so I'm sorry if I'm saying it again, like you can really turn it around.
Yeah.
And like, oh, well, we as human beings, we have form and personality and all this stuff, and we have so many problems. Therefore, God must not have these form and all these things. But that's really the ultimate mistake of anthropomorphism. Like, well, if God has form, it must be like my form. Yeah. So I'm sorry I said that, but it's such a thing.
I'm glad you said it again, probably more eloquently than I did. I used the term the concept of reverse anthropomorphism, where I'm rejecting the possibility of God as a person based on my very limited conception of what a person must be.
Absolutely.
Reverse anthropomorphism. And that, so this bhakti, it's not just like different within the 9 dots. You all know the 9 dots example, or within the box. It's just like completely different paradigm. It's not material. It's not the opposite of material. Oh, material, it's like there's anxiety in relationships, and with dancing is material. So spiritual must be no dancing. No. Nietzsche, the philosopher Nietzsche, said, I would believe in a God who could dance. Right? So it's like, we got a God who dances. And because Krishna's dancing with the gopis, Krishna's wrestling with the coward boys, so that must be material. No, that's spiritual dancing. Right? And so we don't want to imitate Dancing with the Gopis. At the same time, the process of bhakti, it includes physical expression, it includes singing, it includes, and so, oh, that's material. No, so that's it. So we're guided by Srila Prabhupada. We're guided by the Vedas. How to engage in spiritual dancing, spiritual eating, spiritual communication, spiritual relationships. And that's just, it's because the impersonal approaches, they're just like a rejection of the material. And then you're left with nothing. And there could be some relief from the material anxieties, but it's not satisfying for the soul. So the reverse anthropomorphism, rejecting the possibility of God's personhood on the basis of my puny conceptions of what a person must be.
It seems like regardless the mistake, it seems like there is a seed of humility, perhaps, in that type of thinking, though.
Could you please expand on that?
Yeah, I'm saying just a seed of it, because it's they're taking it in the way that they're saying it, despite the flaw in their thinking. They're it's like an indirect admission of the problems that humans are having with their senses, with their form, and it's sort of not real direct, but sort of like, well, God is something higher and more transcendent to what's happening here.
Thanks. Yeah, it acknowledges that, like, I've tried to be happy in material life, and I'm failing. It's misery, it's suffering. So that there's a humility there. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Gajendra. Any other comments or questions at this time?
I think it's funny that on one hand, there is that, like, chanting and dancing and eating samosa, it's not spiritual. And that's, people wanted to reject spirituality as a whole.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there is people that say my dancing and my eating and my enjoying my life is spiritual. Yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. All sorts of rationalizations. So I can, my body gets to be the center, and I can call it spiritual, and et cetera, et cetera. Bhakti Devin.
Hare Krishna. Good morning.
Good morning, Hare Krishna.
I just have to say something, because we're talking in language of father and son.
Yes,
we're talking in language of actually in that language, but actually we're talking about the relationship of the. I'm looking for the words in the verse, the subordinate and the superior.
Yes, thank you.
Like, we're not really talking like male necessarily, but we're just actually talking about subordinate and superior. But because the father-son language is used here, it's attractive to me as I'm studying a lot about father and son relationships through the perspective of the story Iron John, as told by Robert Bly. And and he gives sort of
the men's movement and that sort of thing. And apart from your reading, you're in an intense seminar in your life about father and son fatherhood.
True. I'm in the middle, looking up and down as a father and son. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's true. And so, yes, I'm listening to this book, and he's giving like a kind of a social perspective. There's this commentary that he's giving along with this story, but basically one of the things I heard is just saying, okay, what the Industrial Revolution has taken fathers away from sons. They work till 6 p.m. in the evening, and when they come home, the sons only get their temperament. Yeah. and they lack, and they're missing the parental nature of the father and the lessons of the father, and then also the children don't get to see what the father does all day, and because of that they create what the father does because of the feelings of separation, I guess, something like this. Then they experience the father must be doing something evil. It's like interesting look into psychology stuff, and I could like relate with different parts and be concerned about, yeah, how is this my life? And so related to what's happening here, in this section of Bhagavatam and Prabhupada quoting from Bhagavad Gita, how the Lord impregnates the external or material energy, and thus the total living entities come out in different gradations. And I was just thinking, well, yeah, I could think, well, Krishna's absent from my life, unless I choose him, unless I choose to find out, well, what is he doing every day? And so it's a choice and a responsibility of a son to like, and the father to like allow the son to go to work. So recently I took Kirtan to work. It was a stressful day. He had a couple of meltdowns. He needed more attention than I was giving him and stuff like that. But this was even before I had read in this book. But then I thought, man, it's really good. He needs to see what I'm doing during the day and not just think, oh, my daddy's gone all day and what is he doing? And then, yeah, I come home and I don't have a lot of maybe the nurturing father energy left or something like that. And so, yeah, how is this about our relationship with Krishna as a father? Is like, I could just think, well, he's not in my life unless I choose him to be in my life. And I think about him and I think about, I want to be curious, what's he doing all day? And something like that.
Thanks for creating that bridge. Yeah, and so that's yeah. There's the take your daughter to work day, take your son to work day. I also did that when my children were little. I had some interesting, humorous, adventurous, sometimes uncomfortable experiences in doing that. Thanks for that, Bhakti Devin. And so like Krishna as a supreme father and supreme friend, but we're focusing on father here. Yeah, he's saying like he's like giving it to us. Here's what I do. Here's what I do. Yeah, I don't want you to be like at home alone. And here's what I do. To whatever extent we want to open ourselves up. And Krishna's like, well, the whole Bhagavatam, and then the 10th canto, and Srila Prabhupada is just giving us the windows to, here's what your father does. Here's every moment, every day. So we can absorb our full lifetime in what our supreme father does. And I appreciate the psychology there that you're bringing. Like, what does my father do? And they just go out and they come, as opposed to maybe in the more olden days, centuries ago, from even I was living in Arab villages a few decades ago, and like they would be working in the fields, and at 4 years old, the children are helping them in the field. So it's not this big mystery, like that, or like that. And then, so that psychology is there. And Krishna is like, yeah, this doesn't need to be a mystery for you. You can join me in my pastimes. You can join your supreme father in these pastimes. Thank you, Bhakti Devin. I appreciate it.
Okay, so then practically go to work with my father Krishna all day. Just absorb myself in reading about Krishna all day. That's the practical way to realize that.
Reading about Krishna and bringing people to the Supreme Father. So it's like Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan, Vishnu in Vaikuntha, Krishna's out. So Krishna and Krishna and the gopis, Krishna and Mother Yashoda, and so it's reading, and then through chanting, those pastimes get revealed, and then going to work, whatever our service, whatever our work, whatever occupation with family or with colleagues or with clients, to rack our brain to like, okay, how can How can I awaken their natural attraction to their Supreme Father? And by doing that, Krishna is very pleased. Krishna is very pleased, and he reveals more. The Supreme Father reveals himself and his pastimes and his qualities and his relationships more and more to us. So it's reading and then inspiring people to the reading and to awaken their love of God. And Krishna and Prabhupada are so pleased by that. And everything, to mention samosas. So when we make a commitment, I'm going to eat only prasad, Krishna is happy about that. And then we get more realization about Krishna's pastimes and Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Yes.
You reciprocate.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so, like, there's a part of me that's feeling a little bit of sadness right now in hearing the word father, because it often brings up for me the troubles in society and in relationships, and just realizing, it's almost like a trigger word. And it's like you have one person and, like, oh, they hear the word father and they may think of a really loving father who was that father who took care of them, who protected them, who taught them things, who was, and then someone else hears the word father and all they think is like that paternalistic abuser, that blah, blah, blah. And it's like sometimes, it's like even in like Krishna consciousness, like I was at a Sangha one time and somebody gave what could have sounded like a really beautiful example, maybe about protecting certain parts of human beings, and yes. Other people got like really triggered by it. It's just, it makes me sad. It says I'm expressing a little sadness. But,
Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we just yesterday, Valerie and I returned from Orem, Utah, and we conducted a Sappho advanced seminar there. And of course, we had processes related to the legacy of mother and father. And yeah, so to whatever extent we're material consciousness, we have mothers and fathers who are imperfect, and we are mothers and fathers that are imperfect. And okay, and that's all perfect, om purnam, perfectly complete context for our self-realization, for deepening our inspiration to get out of material life and enter spiritual life. And okay, and I appreciate your sharing there. The father can become a trigger word more and more as each generation. I believe I get what you mean. And then okay, so we have this true perfect father, perfect father, Sri Krishna, who will never let us down, who's always there for us, our true best friend, best listener, protector, in protection without oppression, and just perfect nurturing father. And in this recent course there was a lot of presence of Sri Radha Krishna and Jesus as the Supreme Father made profound appearances. So, and I hear what you're saying, Gajendra, about more and more father becomes a trigger word for more and more people, and in some cases rightly so, in some cases with some social constructs and things like that. So we have the opportunity to take shelter of Sri Krishna, the father of all living entities. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.